Hello and welcome to GameSack. We're back with more franchise killers.
Yeah, a lot of series of games that have just gone by the wayside, and who knows if they're ever coming back. It's been many, many years, but let's take a look at some of them.
We all know and love the Streets of Rage series from Sega, which appeared on the Genesis. It all started in 1991, and it was one of the smash hits that Sega needed to combat the Super Nintendo. And it really helped Sega pull ahead for a long while. It was way more fun than any version of Final Fight, and of course it had awesome music from Yuzo Koshiro to boot. What does that even mean anyway, to boot? That's just dumb. But I guess it's appropriate, since in this game you put your boot into other people's faces. Yeah! Streets of Rage 2 is what every sequel should be. Way bigger and better in pretty much every regard. And that's no surprise, since it had 4 times the memory of the original. Hell, you'd expect the cartridge itself to be 4 times bigger, but no. To me, this was the pinnacle of the series, and everyone should play it at least 20 or 30 times. At minimum. Then we have Streets of Rage 3. Sadly, compared to the first 2 games, this one is kind of a letdown despite being 6 times the size of the original game. The main character sprites are pretty ugly, and they attempted a weird experimental soundtrack. Honestly though, it's not a bad or poor playing game in any way. In fact, I own the Japanese version called Bare Knuckle 3, which is actually much better. Except for the name. The name is dumb. I like Streets of Rage. Anyway, the characters look nicer, and more importantly, it doesn't have all of the dumb changes that the US version of the game got. Although it's not as good as either of the first 2 games, it's still awesome. Well, maybe besides some of that experimental music. Hey Yuzo, experiment in your own free time, not on commercial releases, thank you. So, you think this is the franchise killer? Well, no. You see, Core and Eidos were actually developing what they hoped would be Streets of Rage 4 for the Saturn. Sega was on board for this for a while. But then Eidos decided that they wanted the game to be multi-platform, and Sega decided that Eidos can just go straight to hell. So the Streets of Rage franchise died, and the world got a new franchise called Fighting Force. Seriously, could they have picked a more generic name? I don't think so. Oh, and by the way, later on, Yuzo Koshiro did try to propose Streets of Rage 4 for the Dreamcast, but it didn't work out very well, and Fighting Force would be all she wrote, at least for a while. I'll get to that in a minute. Anyway, Fighting Force appeared on the PlayStation, Nintendo 64, PC, basically everything at the time except the Saturn. Eidos was like, F you, Sega, Fighting Force is way better than anything Streets of Rage could ever be. However, they were wrong. Fighting Force is a playable, if unspectacular beat-em-up. Honestly, I'm quite glad that this didn't end up as Streets of Rage 4. You have a punch, kick, run, as well as some other buttons that I just don't press. You beat up a bunch of bad guys that run at you from the distance in small areas. There's not a ton of variety, so to me the game began to get a bit tiring. The enemies just keep coming and coming, and they're mostly the same. Hell, even a UPS truck barrels in and delivers more enemies for you to fight. Excuse me, I didn't order these enemies. The graphics aren't too bad for their time though. Not great, but not bad. The Nintendo 64 version has lower resolution textures and they've been blurred, but of course that's to be expected since they have to fit it all into the cartridge format. But other than that, they look mostly identical. And of course, the music is certainly nowhere near Streets of Rage quality. And Fighting Force was apparently popular enough to warrant the existence of Fighting Force 2. This came out on the PlayStation and the Dreamcast, and of course I'm playing it on the Dreamcast here. Now instead of a somewhat tolerable beat-em-up, we get put into a base where we need to find our way through a giant maze of connected rooms all designed by an architect with absolutely no sense of reason, as buildings in video games tend to be. And of course you'll need to find the appropriate keycards to be able to access these rooms. Not only that, but now you have mission objectives. And these consist of things that aren't just beating the ever-living crap out of everyone you see for no good reason. Yeah, there's still some beat-em-up action, but it feels very watered down here. The enemies go down fast and they don't pose a problem even when they gang up on you. In fact, the big challenge is probably just figuring out where to go and what to do. Come on, this is supposed to be a sequel to a beat-em-up. Why am I doing this? The graphics are sharp, but it's still not very appealing to look at all. And sometimes I've got to say that the camera can sure suck my unwiped ass. There's no music, only boring ambience. This game sure didn't do Core or Eidos any favors, and it assured everyone that Fighting Force was a franchise that was done before it even got very far. And I tell you what, it will not be missed. Hold the phone! A few weeks after we finished production on this episode, .mu and Sega officially announced Streets of Rage 4. Now I don't know if these Saturday morning cartoony visuals have really grabbed me just yet, but hey, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. But the good news is that the game is finally coming. And if it's any good, maybe we'll start a series called Resuscitated Franchises. Who knows?
Tarak the Dinosaur Hunter was an amazing comic book from 1954 that I never read. Apparently somebody at Iguana read it though and thought it would be a good idea to turn it into a video game. It was March 1997 and the Nintendo 64 had been released only 6 months earlier. Everything was new and 3D worlds were where the action was. Tarak was exciting as it was a new IP that would take advantage of the N64's unparalleled 3D capabilities. When I first played it, I thought, well, this is kind of fun, I guess. I didn't play too much of it, even though I had a friend who really liked it and played it a lot. I wish I had played it more back then, as I'm liking it a lot more than I did at the time. You play as Tarak in a first-person mode, and you must find lots of keys in every level to advance. Tarak controls very well, and the game will have you doing lots of different things from swimming to climbing to platforming. Have you ever tried platforming in a first-person shooter game? Well, it's not easy, and every platform that I jump on, I feel like I'm not going to make it since you can't see where you're jumping. Tarak has many weapons that he can use, including lots of different types of guns, a knife, and a bow and arrow. Enemies range from different types of dinosaurs which are fun to kill, and humans who somehow don't get attacked by the dinosaurs. Anyway, the game turned out to be a big enough seller that 3 more games were made for the Nintendo 64. 2 direct sequels which improved the graphics quite a bit over the first title. The games were still fun to play, but the storylines were getting more and more weird. Lots of sci-fi crap and fewer dinosaurs. The enemies turned into more lizard and alien looking things, which was totally annoying. The final game on the N64 was just a multiplayer deathmatch title, which would be fun with others, but it's not GoldenEye. Tarak had a few games released on Nintendo's handhelds, which as you can see by this Game Boy Color release of Tarak 2, they left a lot to be desired. In 2002, Tarak Evolution came out for all the systems of the time. I'm playing the Xbox version. There's a couple of good things here. Firstly, there's 2 analog sticks, so controlling the game is a lot easier than the Nintendo 64 setup. Secondly, there's actually dinosaurs in this game. Some of them are plant eaters and you can't hurt them and they can't hurt you, but there's other raptor types which of course you can kill. Sadly though, there's still lots of alien lizard things crawling around that like to shoot you. Sometimes I feel like this game is trying to be Halo. To break up the game a bit, the developers put in some flying stages which are fun when you can control your dinosaur. I died a lot playing these levels just because the dino didn't control as well as it should. But when I was able to control it, I had a fun time. There's other control issues here as well. It's hard to see, but I'm shooting at enemies in the far distance with my bow. You can tell that I'm killing them because of the blood splatting, but you can also see that my reticle isn't even close to the enemy. That's just sad. Again, there's a bit of fun to be had here, but don't expect a lot. 6 years passed and a new game was released on the systems of the time in 2008 titled Turok and Nothing More. I'm playing the PS3 version here since I don't own an Xbox 360, so don't put in the comments, why do you always play the PlayStation version? Thank God they kept the sci-fi to a minimum. You and a bunch of soldiers are sent to collect some dude on a different planet and bring him back to Earth. Your ship is shot down and when you come to, you're on the planet. The planet is filthy with dinosaurs and of course the soldiers of the dude you're trying to collect. The game is hugely story-driven. Again, you have the usual guns at your disposal, but the cool thing is that you can dual wield them. But as with the previous games, the knife and the bow are way more powerful than the guns. Shooting a raptor with a gun is stupid since it takes about 10 bullets. But one stab with your knife and they're dead instantly. Plus, you get a decently cool looking cinematic as you plunge your knife into them. Just like with the other titles, the game's not perfect and has some issues. Stabbing dinos with your knife isn't easy. You'll stab at the air many times when you should be plunging your knife into their neck. My biggest complaint is when you're taking damage. The screen turns red on the outside, which is fine as I'm used to that with other first-person games, but your screen also gets really blurry, leaving you basically blind to what's going on. This is hugely annoying since it's the exact time when you need to be able to see everything. Other than that, it's just a decent game. So we haven't seen Tarak for 8 years now. There's been a remastering of his first 2 games, but you know what, those don't really count. Where is he, and is anyone going to make another title? I'm guessing not, because in the end, Tarak is, well, it's a decent game, but really nothing more than that. I think it has an audience, but the audience isn't big enough to warrant the cost of making a new title. I hate to say it, but I think we've seen the last of Tarak.
You owe me one.
Follow GameSack on Twitter at GameSack and at GameSackDave, on Instagram at GameSackOfficial, and check out our Patreon if you want. Yeah, I could never really get into the Turok series, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, they're fun for a little while, but it's just like there's nothing really special about it.
You know, during the N64 episodes, I actually enjoyed the Turok games there a lot more than I thought I would, surprisingly.
Yeah, surprisingly. I agree totally with you on that one, because when I went back and played that first Turok, I was like, wow, this actually isn't too bad.
Yeah, I was amazed.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've got more coming. Let's go.
Let's take a look at the Rocket Knight Adventures and Sparkster series of games by Konami. The first game released was Rocket Knight Adventures on the Genesis in 1993. It was refreshing to see Konami releasing something completely different at the time from their usual drab Castlevania and Contra games. Just kidding, of course. But yeah, it's nice, and the game turned out to be really fun, if not insanely hard. You play an opossum who's probably the least qualified marsupial to be a superhero. He wields a sword that's awesome and fun to use since it has range and can cut down those ugly pigs from a distance. The best ability though is using the rocket pack. You power up a meter by holding in the attack button. Like I said, the game is hard. Luckily you have a row of hearts to go through before you die, but depending on the enemy you're fighting, they can deplete very quickly. It's all good though, because you don't want a cakewalk game that doesn't challenge you. Where's the fun in that? As you can see, the game is super colorful and has a lot of detail. The levels are really long, and at times you'll be thinking that you've reached the end of a level only to find out that you still have more to conquer. It's just a great game all around. A year later, Konami released Sparkster on the Genesis. It's a sequel, but feels way more like a step back. I mean this as it has way less charm than the first game instead of more, like a sequel should have. The graphics seem basic and the level design isn't as great in comparison. And the control is good and it's also bad. It's good because your rocket attack is now its own button. It charges faster, which lets you do multiple rockets while still in the air. It's bad now as your sword feels cumbersome, like it's way too heavy or something. It also doesn't shoot projectiles anymore and it can't be powered up. Luckily, the game is still really fun to play though. At the same time, Konami released Sparkster on the SNES. Yep, same title but different game. Besides the box art and title, the only thing this shares with the Genesis version is some of the soundtrack. The control is more like Rocket Knight Adventures, where you can hold in the attack button to power up your rocket. And your sword shoots projectiles again, which is really nice. It also uses the shoulder buttons for a forward and backward roll attack. But after these games, Konami seemed to forget about their new mascot. However, years and years later in 2010, Konami released Rocket Knight in an attempt to revive the series that they had ignored for so long. I'm playing on the PS3 here, and it's also on the Xbox 360 and PC. This digital-only title was developed by Climax Studios and is presented as a 2.5D platformer. A lot of the play mechanics from the Genesis version of Sparkster make a return, but there are some new things that you can do. like a short-range fireball which can come in handy, or this drill move to get you through barricades. Overall, the control seems fine, and again it's more like the Genesis Sparkster in that the rocket pack auto-recharges. There's tons and tons of checkpoints in each level which you probably won't need because the game is so easy. The shooter levels also make a return, and even those have lots of checkpoints. But once you finally make it to a boss, the game becomes pretty tough. Well, that is until you learn what to do. The game definitely isn't balanced well in the difficulty department. The bosses are fun and pretty much the only thing that presents any kind of challenge. There are a couple of good ideas in here, like during the cold levels when your rocket pack gets frozen. You need to stand next to a heat source in order to recharge it, so be careful and don't overuse it. The game as a whole is more zoomed out, and this just kind of makes things look a bit less impressive. Or maybe it's the plain, ugly graphics that do that. That's right, just look at these. There's not much detail or color, and there doesn't even seem to be many polygons. And the colors that are here just tend to be very drab. And despite this, the game runs at a fairly low frame rate a lot of the time. Still though, I was able to find an area or two that I thought looked kinda good. I played the demo for this game back in the day and I wasn't impressed. The full game is definitely better, but still feels extremely rushed. I think it could have been awesome had they put more time and resources into it. It sold very poorly, and that's why we haven't seen another one since. Perhaps it would have sold better if they had made it better.
Hudson Soft's Bloody Roar series began in the arcade and was quickly ported home to the PlayStation here. Developed by Aiding, this is basically a caged 3D fighter similar to fighting vipers. But the gimmick in this series is that you can transform into a strong beast when the gauge near your life bar allows for it. In this mode, you're stronger but slower and with different attacks. But the beast mode doesn't last forever and you're soon transformed back into the weakling human you really are. The graphics are good for the time and the music, it rocks. And yes, it can get a little bloody sometimes. Definitely worth a play. Bloody Roar 2 also came out on the PlayStation. They stepped up the visuals in this one, and the entire game is not only in high resolution, but there's also a widescreen mode. I always find it amazing when games from that generation have a proper anamorphic widescreen mode. I mean seriously, that's some real forward thinking right there. Anyway, the game is still good, though there have been some minor changes made here and there to the fighting system. And it still got blood in it, along with the prerequisite roars. I talked about both of these games in more detail back in episode 141, so be sure to check that one out if you want to hear my full thoughts on the first two games in the series. In 2001, the series came to the PlayStation 2 with Bloody Roar 3. It's basically more of the same, but that isn't a bad thing here. The gameplay is pretty much the same way, just with newer stages and nicer graphics. I like this stage where you can actually fall through it as you fight. And for some reason, they got rid of the widescreen mode. And that makes me sad. I mean, I'm probably the only person in the world who would notice, but believe me, I noticed. Still, this one plays great, and as always, it has some kick-ass music which only makes everything better. I didn't see a whole lot of blood in this one. It mainly just shows up as a quick red mist that you can barely see. Bloody Roar? More like Misty Roar. Oh man, I have such a hard time pronouncing the word roar properly sometimes. Hitting that hard R at the beginning of the word can be difficult when you're saying it over and over, so please bear with me. Anyway, we can't forget about Bloody Roar Extreme, sometimes known as Primal Fury. This was on the Xbox and the GameCube, and I'm playing the Xbox version here. It shares a lot of the assets from the third game, and some of the backgrounds here are variations from that one, but the characters have been redesigned and look a bit different. This is for sure the best looking game in the series when it's run at 480p. Trying to play it with the Xbox controller kinda sucks though. Maybe go for the GameCube version. But for some reason, the US version of the GameCube game doesn't support 480p, though the Japanese version does. I mean seriously, what the hell? I'll never be able to wrap my mind around that kind of stupidity. Bloody Roar 4 is the final game in the series, and it's available exclusively on the PlayStation 2. Now, just because it's a franchise killer doesn't necessarily mean that it's a horrible game, because it's not. It just didn't make enough money and people started to lose interest in the series. And looking at this game, I can kinda see why. It changes a few things up a bit. The controls are the same, but now your human and the beast mode have their own individual life bars, and both of them must be drained completely in order to defeat an opponent. If one life bar runs out, you automatically transform into the other form, which still has some life, and there's always a chance of earning life back on the other meter as you fight. So that means you can turn into your beast mode at almost any time, and I'm not quite sure that I like this, honestly. I never felt that there was anything wrong or needed to be improved with the old method of earning your beast mode. In fact, in the previous games when your beast mode would run out, you'd get a little nervous as you'd have to fight as a weak human for a while and earn the beast mode back again. Not here, you'll rarely be stuck fighting as a human. To me, the game almost feels too easy with this method. I mean, it's definitely the easiest game in the series. But you can always adjust the difficulty to your liking, so I won't hold that against it. Another thing that I didn't care for is that if you die and continue in single player mode, you can't select a different character. Once you start a game, you're committed to using that person until you beat the game or get a game over. The graphics feature new, yet very bland stages and the same character designs from Bloody Roar Extreme. And although the music is certainly not bad, it just can't hold a candle to any of the previous games. Sadly, this one made the series end on kind of a sour note. Funny enough, in 2011, Hudson tweeted that they were starting work on Bloody Roar 5. But they were literally just trolling their audience. I'm not kidding, that actually happened. Cheeky bastards. Oh well, enjoy the good games in the series and pick up part 4 only if you see it for cheap.
Alright, Joe, well, I'm glad to hear you got some enjoyment out of Bloody Roar. I mean,
It's a good series for the most part.
yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, I didn't play that much of it. It didn't really do much for me, but
Well,
whatever. What about you guys? Did it do anything for you?
Yeah, let us know if it tickled you where it counts.
Yeah, but if not, let's take a look at a few more games.
Samurai Shodown, also known as Samurai Spirits in Japan, first appeared on the Neo Geo in 1993. This is a 2D weapons-based fighting game featuring, you guessed it, samurai warriors and the like. There are also a couple of kick moves too, but let's face it, using your weapon is way more fun. Yeah, I've got a really cool sword here that's a lot of fun to swing, but I'm just gonna kick you instead, okay? Said no one ever. I'll be honest, I hated this game the first couple of times I played it, but once I got used to it, I really grew to appreciate it. I'm still no pro at these games, but I do have an enjoyable time playing them. The atmosphere is fantastic with great Japanese music and visuals, though this guy seems to disagree. These are not easy games, especially number 3, which totally kicks my ass right away. Actually, I kinda take that back. Part 4 here is pretty easy compared to the others. One of the stages is even called Obama. That's right, he wasn't born in Hawaii, he wasn't born in Kenya, he was born in ancient Japan. Of course, Samurai Shodown made its way to the Neo Geo Pocket Color to play on the go. And there was even a Samurai Spirits RPG that sadly never left Japan. And that's too bad, because from what I've played so far, it seems pretty enjoyable. I mean, it would be if I could understand it, I think. I'm playing it here on the Saturn, by the way. And of course, there's Samurai Shodown 64 for the Hyper Neo Geo 64, which, sadly, I have no way of playing at the moment. The first 6 games can be had on the Samurai Shodown Anthology for the PS2, Wii, and the PSP. But that one doesn't include Samurai Shodown 5 Special, which was the last game in the series to appear on the Neo Geo. And holy crap, I almost forgot Samurai Shodown Warriors Rage for the PlayStation. Well, you can't blame me, it's kind of forgettable. Still, there really are a lot more games in this series than you'd think. And overall, it's a pretty damn good fighting game series with lots of fans. But then, we get to Samurai Shodown Sen, released in the arcades in 2008 and for the Xbox 360 here in 2010. This is the last brand new game released in the series so far. This marks the series' return to 3D fighting, which has always been 2D except for the Hyper Neo Geo 64 games. You do have a fairly large roster of fighters to choose from, which is of course very welcome. To be honest, it's not an outright horrible game, but it certainly is far from spectacular. I think that my main gripe with this one is that it doesn't feel like a Samurai Shodown game. It's become just another generic weapons-based 3D fighting game with a quick coat of Samurai Shodown paint glossed over it. There are quite a few returning characters here, but the new ones are super generic and just kind of boring to fight. The control isn't fantastic, but I'll be honest, that's to be expected since I'm using the standard Xbox 360 controller here. But it's not bad enough to where I feel like I lose matches because of it. The problem is that I just become bored with the combat. The more I play, the more bored I get. Hell, I even feel that the developers were bored making this. Gone is any of the Japanese ambience of the Neo Geo games. Now we're battling all around the world, which isn't a first for the series to be sure, but this one just really makes my character feel out of place somehow. Adding to this is the game's almost complete lack of color. It really suffers from the overdone browns and grays that infected that generation of games so severely. There is a bit of red mist that's supposed to be blood that appears sometimes. Oh, and there's a sunset here. But this is as colorful as it gets, and it still looks as boring as watching my cat sniff a newly discovered ball of dust on my dirty floor. Actually, I take it back, the cat was more entertaining. The music fares a little better, and it does seem to have some personality, but again, it's just kind of there and provides very little actual ambience. Or ambiance, however you personally pronounce it. I mean, I keep saying that word, but really, I feel that the series is nothing without it. Apparently, this game just wasn't enough to renew people's interest or gain any new fans, so the series has been pretty much put on permanent hold ever since. And yes, once again, a few weeks after we wrapped this episode, a new title was announced for 2019. I just can't win. Or hey, can I? Maybe it'll be good. Anyway, what do you think of the Samurai Shodown series?
To fight. Let's take a look at Alex Kidd in Miracle World on the Master System, released in 1986. For the most part, this is a solid game. Alex can do many things like breaking blocks for money and collecting icons that will let him shoot a projectile. Not only that, but with all the money you collect, you can buy yourself some pretty cool stuff at the shop. Things like this motorcycle, which will let you ride and destroy everything in your way. That is until you hit a red ball, which automatically makes your motorcycle disappear. That's okay though, since the game is fun and I'm having a great time swimming and fighting all sorts of enemies. At the end of the level, you reach a boss and instead of fighting him, you find yourself in a game of rock, paper, scissors. What the hell is this? I'm looking for a fight here and I get a stupid game of chance? Well, that just pretty much ruined the game for me, and I can't imagine that too many people felt it was a good idea. It's a shame because I was having a good time. The next game, Alex Kidd The Lost Stars, came out in 1988. It was both in the arcade and on the Master System. It feels a bit more like a Mario game, so of course I'm going to enjoy it. It's a pretty straight up game going left to right, dodging enemies and doing lots of platforming. A couple of things that are a bummer is that there are no real boss fights and your life bar slowly depletes. It's not a big problem though if you keep collecting the icons that appear all over. The most amazing part of this game is the quality of the voice samples.
Find the miracle ball.
It's very impressive. Alex went in a slightly different direction for the next game, which is Bmx Trials. Don't go looking in your thrift stores for this one since it wasn't released outside of Japan. Plus it requires an analog controller that was also only released in Japan. It's not an amazing game, but it's not bad either. Next came Alex Kidd in High Tech World. This is a huge departure as it's more of an adventure game with lots of puzzle solving. You need to find map pieces so you can put them together to find a new arcade. Yeah, a hidden arcade. It's quite boring as it takes a long time to get to the action part of the game. Basically what Sega did was slap Alex Kidd on one of their existing games in Japan. But why? Definitely not a game I want to play much of as it's just, like I said, boring. The last Master System game actually came out after the Genesis title, but let's look at it now. It's Alex Kidd in Shinobi World. I really enjoyed this little mashup of the two titles. The game retains the Alex trademark of breaking blocks and adds Shinobi's trademarks, like swinging a sword or twirling on light poles to become a destructive fireball. Well, okay, Shinobi didn't twirl on light poles, but it's still cool. Even the music is reminiscent of Shinobi. Not a bad game, and a great end to the series on the Master System. But to me and most other people, the game that killed the franchise was the early Genesis title called Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle. Spoiler alert, this game isn't very enchanting. If you're hoping for a great 16-bit Alex Kidd game, this isn't going to make you happy. They kinda tried to go back to the series' roots with gameplay that is reminiscent of the first game. But still, I hated this one almost immediately. The past games all had somewhat slippery controls, but they're acceptable. This game has super slippery controls, and it doesn't help that the hit detection is pretty weak. Alex can punch, which is great, and he can also kick during a jump. This is the weakest attack in any game that I've ever played. Even Bubble Ghost blowing a bubble around a level is much more powerful than this attack. For the most part, to finish a level, all you have to do is make it to the end and collect your rice cake. After a couple of levels, you come to your first boss fight. What the hell is this? Oh yeah, let's play rock, paper, scissors again. This right here pisses me off beyond belief. I won the battle, but I'm still bitter about it. Luckily, you die a lot in this game, and it didn't take but a few moments into the next level for me to meet my demise. This means I never have to play this title again. Ever. So why did Alex Kidd die off? Well, for one, Sega couldn't decide what they wanted Alex Kidd to be. I like the fact that Sega tried many different playstyles with the franchise though. A few of the games were actually enjoyable, but others were like starting a workday as you force yourself to play the game. But we all know the reason why Alex Kidd died, and I can sum it up in 3 words. Sonic the Hedgehog.
Okay, those are some more franchise killers for you. And I gotta admit, I did get some enjoyment out of Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle on the Genesis. I mean, it was back in the day when, games didn't come out very often, and I just kind of forced myself to play through it. It's just, I mean, I didn't love it, and it has aged very, very poorly.
Yeah, but in that situation, I can totally see that, where it's a game that you're kind of like, this is all I've got to play, so I might as well get used to it.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed Altered Beast more still, even back in the day, but I can see where you're coming from on Alex Kidd.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And honestly, who misses Alex Kidd?
Yeah.
I really don't.
Yeah, me neither.
Anyway, let us know some more franchise killers of franchises that you love, and in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSat.
Man, Joe, Magician Lord would have been a great franchise, I mean, they should have made more of these.
Well, actually, they were going to make a sequel to this, Dave, but I guess it just never happened.
I guess there just wasn't enough magic, huh? How about, hey punk, are you tough enough to master the moves to master me? That could have been a great franchise, I think.
Wasn't tough enough, I guess.
I guess not. See ya. Oh, hey, here's a good one. Cosmic Carnage? That would have been a pretty good franchise.
Well, they came out with Carnage Rally on the Game Boy Advance.
Seriously, dude, that's a completely different game. Ooh. NAM 1975. I mean, come on, where's the rest of the war? NAM 1968 through 73? That would have been awesome.
Well, Dave, this is the sequel to the actual war. It's based on a true story.
Wow. And that hot chick's in there?
Yeah.
Dude, I would have totally been drafted just to save her. She's hot. Oh, here's the ultimate, man. BC Racers. Dude, a franchise of BC Racers? You could have had 80 racers. 80 racers. I would have driven a Ferrari.